right. Welcome back to the Disciples Made Here podcast. I'm Heather Hodson. This is Drew Sodestrom. So the last few episodes, we've really gone deep into the topics of defining a disciple.
Right.
We define that as R cubed, R1, R2, R3. We really talked about identity and rooting our identity in who God made us to be. And then we went into calling and what that means of what we're called to do specifically as followers of Christ. And then we talked about the gospel, which is obviously a huge topic too. So we've hit a bunch of big stuff.
Yep. No, and it's honestly been super fun. And so as people that are not normal podcasters, like, thanks for just being with us on the journey. And obviously there's things that like we're not hitting exhaustively. Like when we talk about the gospel and even my language of I don't want to just get the gospel, I want to be gotten by the gospel, like really understanding what is the good news of Jesus, that we were made for relationship with him, that we walked away, that he purchased us. So the design and the purchase. And so so we just know that we can't have everything. And sometimes I'm afraid of being misunderstood, of course, right? Where it's like when I say there's more joy in Jesus, people are like, oh, you're just a joy guy. Easy believism. And I'm like, no.
Right.
The glory of God is primary. Glory of God is number one. That's why John Piper says God is most glorified when we're most satisfied in him, because he made us for a relationship, to be with God, to be in a relationship with him. And so we did. We parsed that primary call, which all of us have, because it's rooted in our identity, be with God, follow God, son, daughter, and then sent one.
Yeah, so obviously you've been doing this a long time, a lot longer than me, and something that we've discussed a lot is that really the goal is not for me or anybody else to go to church. And that's kind of surprising coming from my pastor.
Yeah,
so
no, totally. And for me, it is, what is the mission? What's the mark? Jesus says, I came to seek and to save the lost. He calls the disciples to follow him, and then he invites them, he sends them to go help other people follow him. And so if the goal, if the target is to be a disciple, R1, R2, R3, and that's the target and that's the goal, then Sunday mornings exist, again, for the glory of God, but to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And so the goal, and the only goal, the only mission is the great commission that we do together, which is to be disciples that then make disciples. And so I've often said to people, just trying to get them to think, to rethink their thinking, if that's the goal, I would argue at times that the two greatest stumbling blocks to the mission of making disciples can be senior pastors and Sunday morning gatherings, which people laugh because they're like, wait, you are a senior pastor, you have multiple Sunday gatherings, what's so bad about those? And I'm not saying the gatherings bad. I'm just saying we can be unintentionally outsourcing our discipleship. We can unintentionally say, well, Drew, you're the pastor. You're the one that's doing that. That's your job. And it's like, no. Identity is the same. Calling then is how we do that in our different places and spaces. But it's not about paid church staff. It's not about maintenance. It's about mission. It's not about, well, we're giving everybody what they want when they want it. It's about the mission of God, which is not a senior pastor mission. It's a kingdom of God, and everyone in the kingdom has a role in that.
Yeah. So this episode, we're just asking, what if church attendance isn't the goal? And bottom line, what does it look like to be a disciple? It might not be what you think. It's not just inviting your neighbor to church.
Yeah. And again, it does feel weird. I don't not want you, Heather, to invite your friends to church. I do. But the Sunday gathering is for the glory of God, to equip the saints to go be the living proof of a loving God. And I think sometimes, and even in like a business construct, like we create business models and structures. And I've often heard it said, and I believe that if you have a problem in your business, then you actually probably have a structure and a system that is set up intentionally to give you that problem. Like it's designed structurally to do that. So I want to, as a senior pastor with a Sunday gathering, ask some critical questions to be like, what are we measuring? How do we feel like we're hitting the mark? Because what you measure, you will multiply. What is the bullseye? Because if you're just a little bit off target from the bullseye, man, week after week after week, you could be way off target as well.
Yeah. And we just can't hit a target that we don't even know that we're aiming at. And so the target is being a disciple, R1, R2, R3, and try not to pull too hard to any which of those.
And we had fun kind of talking about that. Like, let's get back to center, get back to hitting the target.
Right. One story that I have heard you tell and that I just think is a compelling like example of this is your Talbot survey story.
Yeah. So I was a pastor in Southern California. I was teaching at Biola. But before that, I was just a Talbot student. pastor, student, learning. I'm still learning, lifelong learner. And I was a missions pastor at the time, adult ministry and missions and outreach. And sometimes we think about outreach, it's like we're supporting missionaries that go do that over there. The way we support missionaries globally, but even locally, is we just want to do here what you're doing there. Like, it's that simple, because everyone has that same identity, son, and call, sent one. So in that context, we had some core values as like an outreach ministry. And the first one was simply this, that we really believed that the best way to share the love of Christ is in relationships. That just God's a relational God. He puts us in places and spaces to do relational ministry, right? So that was number one. And really everyone I've shared that with is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like
tracks.
we're not anti-events, but I think the most effective way is this gathering with people and being maybe the best invites not to church, but to your house or to coffee or whatever that looks like. So number one, the love of Christ is best shared in the context of relationship. Number two, our value is simply this, that all those who genuinely love Christ inevitably share that love with other people. And so when I share those two values to our missions team, when I share them at churches, even when I share them at Talbot, people are like, oh yeah, totally. Yep. All in relationships through each other. If we love God, of course we share, right? And so I took that and I was feeling a little dissonance in just the big C, wrestling with that, not
is the
mad,
big C?
the global church, right?
Okay.
The national church, regional church, just the big C, not just, I wasn't frustrated at my micro church or anything like that, just the church. And so it led to this research paper as to where are we? And again, this is, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And so I just asked people to, I always want to reflect and assess because it helps me be better. I'm not afraid of like, ooh, we're missing the mark.
Right.
Let's get back to it. So I just wanted to assess.
Okay.
So I'm doing a Talbot paper and I start to send out this survey to pastors. And it's always safer when you ask guys questions about somebody else. That's true personally too. Like, don't assess me, but I can assess others. Now, we always want to assess ourselves. But I was asking the question, how many people at your church, do you think are intentionally engaging in relationships with the yet to believe, with the hope that God would share his love through them? And so it was a real simple question. Now, underneath that, it was these two presuppositions, that we genuinely share Christ through relationships best, and that we'll do it intentionally. And so the answers to these from churches all over, right? I mean, I had hundreds of pastors respond. How many people in your church are intentionally engaging in relationships with the yet to believe, with the hope that God would use them to bring him glory and they would come to faith? And the answer was kind of depressing. And I don't think that we need to like go crawl into a hole. I think we just need to be honest about it, because the answer, the number one, and some guys were like, 25%, 30%. I've said at Vintage that one of the things I love about our local gathering is the majority of our church, so 51%, is intentionally engaging in relationships. And the answer across the board, the average answer was 10%. And I go, well, crud. Like, dang, if we're saying that, and if my values missionally matter, that all those who genuinely love Christ intentionally share, we're saying a lot of the local church doesn't even love Christ. And so when we want to focus on, well, how do we do R3 better? The reality is we fall more in love with Jesus. And that's hard for people, right? Systems, structures, all of that. Yeah.
So these systems and structures are kind of revealed through this survey, right? The fruit, exactly.
The fruit shows the tree.
Shows it. So there is something that we've done with many other churches and different groups. It's a mental exercise that we, Drew and I, have done, and it's we're going to explain it in two different contexts because we normally do it with church leaders, but I actually think it's really helpful on a personal context too. Just if you're a follower of Jesus. So
and remember, we're not afraid of assessments because they're tools that help us ask critical questions and be better. Like I played college sports. There was never a time in my life I didn't need a coach saying, hey, you're not popping your hips, you're dipping your shoulder, whatever it is. And so these are just good mirrors to help us see, okay, how can we grow? Where are we missing the mark? And so what I do is I'll ask church leaders, I'll say, what do you do? Like, think about everything you do. What does your church do? What are the activities? And I want you to map out, and we'll like go through their calendar. Where do you spend your time, your talent, your treasure? What are the programs you're running? What are the events that if you're calling your church to attend? What are the outreach things? What are they? List everything that your church does.
Yeah, and you can do the exact same thing with your own calendar in your own life. It's kind of like a time audit. Like, what are you doing? Where are you spending your days? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your free time? And so what we'll do is we'll have everybody kind of shout out, what these things are that are on their calendar and on their list. And we'll just kind of jot them down. And he does it in such a way that...
Well, and as the leader, the facilitator,
Exactly.
if I'm doing it with a church staff or a leadership or a bunch of senior pastors, I got the talking stick, right? So I'm writing on the whiteboard and I'll strategically place them in certain places on the whiteboard. So if they give me an R1 answer, like, well, we do Bible studies or we have a prayer campaign, or what, I'll write that at the top of the board.
Right.
And if they say things like, well, we have community groups, I'll write that in the bottom right-hand quadrant of the board, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to space out.
You're going to cluster together.
I'm putting clusters.
R1, R2,
and you can tell
R3.
sometimes these pastors are like, oh, I know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I can see it, right? Corporately. And so I'm sorting them into different sections so we can analyze where are we spending our time, our talent, and our treasure. And to be completely honest, one of the things that we notice, and then I draw circles, right? Around 1 and 2 and 3.
Back to that R1, R2, R3.
100%.
Always, every time.
Yep. And then what we typically see, and it's just a good visual, like, the majority of what our church does is R1 and R2.
Right.
It's not a lot of R3, of equipping the saints to the work of the ministry. And yet Jesus says, as the Lord of the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. And my heart's always like, I hope that's not true of you. Not true of me, not true of we. And so it's just a good evaluation tool to say, wow, the majority, like that holy huddle we talked about before.
Exactly.
That is the system and structure that we've designed. We're getting the exact results as far as the church not growing at the rate we'd like it to. Well, no wonder why. Look at the structures that we've set up.
Yeah, and it directly translates to the personal too. If you have your quiet time with Jesus and your journals and your all that stuff and your prayer time, and you have all your time with your friends and your Bible study and all these things, but you just don't have a lot of that time where you're intentionally spending it with people who don't love Jesus yet. I think that we as Christians, as followers of Jesus, can fall into the exact same trap that kind of the church falls into
100%.
Because again, we're all building it off of those same structures and the same systems.
And that's what I mean. Like Sundays, senior pastors can be a trap if it's all about come here, come here, come here,
come look, come see.
and not actually seeing. And so, Pastor, I'd encourage you to think about that. Like I've heard it said, and we parse our own budget as a church corporately, but is 80% of our time, talent, and treasure going to 0.7% of the week, which is Sundays.
Yes.
And so Sundays can literally be a trap if it's exclusively focused on Sundays only. But if Sundays are really designed for sending, not structurally come, but fundamentally go, glorify God,
That's the
and then
difference.
go, it does start to truly like shift and change things in that context.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think another illustration that you use that I kind of make fun of you for.
Oh, yeah.
But I can see how it is effective here. So tell me about your whole pool metaphor.
Okay, so we moved to El Dorado Hills, and we jokingly and affectionately say that we live on the surface of the sun. My wife's from Redding, so it's even worse. But it's hot here. And I hate the heat. Jen and I would often joke with each other. It's like, is this God saying, please don't live on the surface of the sun? I have designed you for more, not to melt, right? And so we're new to town. My oldest son's had cancer twice, bone marrow transplant, he has skin issues. We're building a pool. We need not a pool, we need a saltwater pool. And so we literally saved up and we're like, we're going to build a pool. So that's a true story, but it became metaphorical for us also. When we built our pool, we designed it in such a way that we tried to think, who do we want to be here? Who is this for? It's for us as a family, of course, but we have friends like the Hodsons. We have yet to believe friends that we haven't even met yet. How do we do this? How do we build the pool? Now, again, we love to swim. I got kids. We love to dive. We love to go deep. And in El Dorado Hills, that was always a fear because you have to use dynamite to go deep because we live on a hill. But we wanted a deep end. In the deep end, it was good. It was designed to explore. It's amazing. And so we wanted to dive. We wanted to go, again, explore the depth of the water, right? And so we had a deep end of the pool, but we also built a pool with a Baja step. A Baja step is 6 to 12, 18 inches so that the kids that don't know how to swim, it's shallow. Not just a shallow end, like a whole shallow space that's designed so that people that are brand new to water can actually hang out and still enjoy the pool.
Okay.
But then we also were like, well, we need to have a barbecue area. What about people that, I think of myself here, those of you that have a fatherly figure or a dad bod, you're like, I don't want to go in the water. Or maybe you're like, I hate the water. I almost drowned when I was a kid. Yeah. I want nothing to do with water, blah, blah, blah. And so when we built this, we have a deep end of the pool, We have a Baja for new swimmers. And then we have this barbecue for people that are like, I'm anti, I don't like, I don't want. And actually, we went one step further. We put a side gate in so anyone could get in quickly, and just our neighbors could come around and jump on it. Why? Because this was space designed for people to, metaphorically speaking, enjoy God, enjoy each other. And so when I think of the pool, I think of church as well. Have we designed our church with places and spaces to go deep with God? To explore, to discover, to be like, this is amazing. And the more amazing it is, the more I'm motivated to go to the shallow end or the Baja step and say, hey, I want you to grow. I want you to enjoy God with us. I want you to discover. And in fact, the more I'm motivated to go there, I'm motivated to get out of the pool at times to be like, guys, dude, don't you see how awesome the water is? And I have people in my life, they're like, I'm never going to church. I hate church. My this, my that. I had an experience here. I got church hurt. God is mean. God let my kid have cancer. That's part of our story, right? And so we have all these perspectives. And all I'm saying is structurally, fundamentally, as a senior pastor and as a son of God who built the pool, literally and now metaphorically, we're trying to have spaces and places for everybody to discover that there's more joy in Jesus. And that is fundamentally and structurally what we've done for his glory, but also for our good.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we kind of talk about all of this and try and create these concepts for people to get some handholds. So like to really concretely get these concepts in their mind for that R1, that deep relationship with God, for that R2 with their fellow believers, and for that R3. It's all to kind of come together. But when you talk about kind of bringing that concept and building a church,
right? So
you're saying all these things. You're a church planter.
Are we structurally setting it up for all those things?
But then you have to actually build this church with, and you're saying you see these stumbling blocks.
Yeah.
So how do you build a gathering and that is not a stumbling block?
So when we planted our church, there were structural, fundamental things we did, trying to think about the target, trying to think about the goal that we still fight for today, because it's always the same thing. Back to R cubed, back to being sent ones, sons and sent, daughters and deployed. And so I still remember as a young church planter talking to coaches and conferences all across the country. And someone made this comment, church planting is easy. You just have to have really good preaching, a really good band, and really good kids ministry. And if you build it, they will come.
Preaching, band, kids.
Yeah. And I remember like this feeling of going, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do actually at Vintage and every church that we partner with, I actually do want you to have really good preaching and a really good worship experience. And I really want you to partner with parents in the kids ministry.
Sure.
That being said, I jokingly was like, so you said it's just the holy trinity of church planting. If you do those three things, it'll work. Yeah. And on some level, the guy's not crazy. Yeah. But what does it work? What does that mean? What it means is other people from other churches that don't like their preaching, their worship experience, or their kids ministry, they're consumers. Yeah. Like we're literally feeding the beast of consumerism instead of calling our people to Christ, to go deep with God and to let that be the motivation. And so at this point, it's okay for us to just say, wait, we're just shuffling sheep.
Right. You're just moving people around.
We're not planting churches out of the harvest. We're not doing that at all. We need to kind of rethink that. And so I'll often draw a picture for pastors where it's like, you put a picture of like a church on the board and you put those three things in and you tell people as a church plant, go out there to the coffee shop, to the library, to the neighborhood, to the sports team, go there and invite them here.
Bring them in.
Bring them in. If you built, they will come. Yep. And all I'm trying to say
Sunday
is
gathering. Yeah.
And what you win them with, you win them too.
I think that's important.
And I'm just trying to get us to ask the question, I want to win you to the joy of Jesus.
Right. Do you want to win them with a really good band so that that's really all they're there for is a really good band?
Yeah.
Nope. That's not really the point.
And we'll talk about that more next week, but it is trying to flip those arrows. It's not that I don't want you, Heather, to invite people to Vintage.
Right.
It's that I want you to invite them into a relationship with you as your relationship with Jesus. It's that the church has to be seen as a gathering for the scattering, not just come and we won. If everyone came to church, because discipleship is a 3-year camping trip. Yeah. Discipleship is not outsourced to pastors or about an event. It's not come and see, it's go and be.
Yeah, I think oftentimes people think about discipleship as like a marketing funnel. I envision like a marketing funnel. So you get like as many people to come in to the top as you can. And then, then you get some people that stick, and then you get some people that join life groups, and then you get some leaders and so on and so forth. But that number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Yep. And the kind of opposite is what we see Jesus do.
100%. I think sometimes we think of Sundays as I want to wow you or I want to woo you.
Right.
What we're missing is Jesus says, I find these 12 knuckleheads that are brand new to faith. They're following me, and I'm going to use them as my lead disciples to go follow me and to invite other people into that process. And so I think that's really, really important to flip the funnel upside down.
Yeah, flipping the funnel upside down and similarly flipping those arrows, right? Like he was saying, instead of the arrows pointing in towards the church and bringing everybody in, if we are structuring that gathering time, which is still important, to be more about sending people out to go about the rest of their lives, which is way the majority of their time, then, you know, you can kind of assess your life and assess your time, and how are you spending it?
Right.
And are you going out from that gathering to then go make disciples?
Yeah. And we'll talk a lot more about how do we structure our gatherings, the why behind the what.
Right.
Like,
we'll
why do we structure them? Because our gatherings are vertical gatherings. They're in the word. They're in worship. They're in generosity and giving. Like, that is the focus of our Sunday gathering. But it is with the perspective that the majority of ministry happens outside of Sunday mornings as you go and as you continue to live your life. Because otherwise, I think we're advertising to people like a business. Come here, come here, come here. We'll make you happy. Here's the irony. We will, because you're going to introduce to Jesus.
Yeah.
He will make you happy. But man, we want to grow with you. We want to go deep, and we want to empower you to go out. And it's both and, not either or. And so the Sunday gathering ends up becoming, that's not like some spiritualized consumerism of like, what do I want? What do I want? It's actually mission. And so it's a battleship, which will be our big theme in the future.
Yeah. And I think it all comes back to, I'm not inviting my neighbor to church only or just exclusively, but I am inviting them into relationship with me. I remember one time when I was early on staff, we had a person call in and say like, I think I heard Drew say that I'm supposed to be the everyday missionary and I'm supposed to be, you know, on mission for these people. And that's Drew's job. And we had to explain like, I mean, that is his job, but it's also your job. And that's what we're trying to explain right now is like, that's all of our job, that we all have a role in that, which is cool.
Yeah. And fundamentally, I've had great joy walking with people in my life. I mean, you and Wes are a part of that, where it's like, you're discovering the joy of Jesus. You're growing in the joy of Jesus. You're living your life now to promote the glory of God and the joy of Jesus. Like, why would I want to steal that from everyone at our church?
Right.
Every one of us is a sent one.
Yeah. And in addition to that, like, I have relationships in my life. I have groups of friends that you don't know. You don't know them. And so you don't get to speak into their life. But I do. And I have that access. And God has placed me in unique places different from you. And so you can reach who's in your circle, and I can reach who's in mine. But I can't just rely on my pastor to just reach everybody.
And so
That's
much
crazy.
of my job then as a pastor, according to Ephesians 4, is to equip the saints like Wes and Heather to go be the living proof of a living God, where you are, where you're living on mission. Because again, if I show up at a 14-year-old girls volleyball game without a 14-year-old girl, that's a weird thing, right? But if you do, that's normal. That's literally where you live, work, and play.
Yeah. So I do want to land the plane there. And here is we need to evaluate our time. We need to evaluate how we're spending our time, our money, our talents, all of those things. And then we can analyze that and then we can kind of see our opportunities for growth. And of course I want to then act on that and like, okay, what do I do now? But before we act on that, you've said this to me so many times. We're actually just going to just rethink our thinking for right now. And that is kind of hard. But you're just kind of asking me to just like step back, analyze, look at it, kind of rethink how I think about what I'm going and doing.
Yeah. And all grace. Like grace upon grace, I'm not afraid of evaluating my time, my talent, my treasure, my budget, our churches corporately. Like, are there things that we can structurally do? Are there things that we need to cut out of our life? Because you and I talk a lot about it's as you go. That's what Matthew says. Just Jesus made disciples not as more. He goes. It's not more. But maybe I need to cut out some stuff so I can be more intentional.
That's true.
Maybe I need to think about my pool and say, I'm not just going to design a pool with a deep end only or a shallow end only. It's got to be both and. And is there space for people that hate the water metaphorically, right? Like, how does this look? And hopefully the reveal exercise of even those R1, R2, R3 circles personally, corporately, hopefully they revealed something. That's the point. And I'd encourage you, like, write some stuff down at some point. What do you want to focus on? What do you want to go to the Spirit? We believe prayer is the work, and say, Spirit of the living God, You're with me. You're the
Yeah.
lead disciple of me first, disciple maker of me. How are the places that I can grow in my faith for your glory and for my joy? And so that is why this podcast exists. And so thank you for being on this journey with me and Heather. I want to encourage you, subscribe, share what's going on. We can't wait till next week. We're going to continue to dive deeper, no pun intended, into what is God inviting us into as disciples, as sent ones, and how do we do that corporately as a battleship that gathers ultimately to scatter. But today, let's keep staying locked in as you live and where you work and as you play for his glory. We love you guys.